So, hi everyone. Super stoked to announce that we'll be hosting Harsh Gupta on the podcast today. So, Harsh is working at Flourish Ventures India. And yeah, Harsh, could you kind of share with us, like, what was it, the investment thesis behind Flourish Ventures, the fund size, like, anything you can share on that front? Like, would love to, like, know your insights and stuff on that.
Firstly, thank you, Roohi, for having me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would love to chat with you and tell you more about Flourish today. To start off with, the Flourish is essentially a early stage fintech fund, which invests in early stage startups across the globe, right? And we're different in a way, and the way we like to call ourselves is that we are VC with purpose. And what we believe and what that really means is that as we founded Flourish, we believe that there was an opportunity and need to build a better, faster financial system that will positively influence people and businesses, right? And with that in mind, our ingoing thesis is that we can back new generations of entrepreneurs who will create these new ventures, and this will catalyze change and then have a demonstration effect over the broader financial ecosystem, right? So the purpose that we're solving for is to have a better financial system that improves the lives of small businesses and people, right? And this could be in various forms, right? By creating access to new forms of credit, or saving for a rainy day, or getting access to a good insurance product, right? So as I mentioned, we are a global fund. We invest in the US, and we invest in three large emerging markets, which includes Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Within Asia, we're investing in India and Southeast Asia more predominantly. From our vantage point, we're different in a way that we're an evergreen fund, wherein we don't have a particular timeline to the fund that we have, which means that we can be long-term partners with the company. We can keep backing them as they keep growing, right? And this fund is 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 a part of the Umidyar group, wherein the Umidyar family is a solo LP in us, right? So yeah, I mean that's about Flourish, really doing early stage fintech investment with differentiated access to capital and with a purpose with which we back entrepreneurs.
That's amazing to kind of hear about the India focus as well, like as well as the global focus. But today we'll be focusing more on the India side and the India operation. So, what kind of defines Flourish Ventures India? Like, can you just talk about this a bit more? Like, what programs do you have to support entrepreneurs? What programs do you have to support founders? And what is the backbone of Flourish Ventures?
Right. I mean, I think we've been very early investors in financial services in India, right? I think this predominantly, goes back to 2015, 2016 is when the firm started investing, and more so under the Umidyar Network brand name, and then the legacy has continued in the form of Flourish Ventures. I think, as I started saying, we are only fintech focused. That's our primary go-to, and our idea is to back young entrepreneurs who are really building something which is differentiated in financial services as a space. Now, what's unique to us is, given that we are a global fund, we do have learnings across the globe, right? Things that we learned from the US, things that we learned from other emerging markets, and as a combination that we can apply to form a thesis and then invest in these businesses, right? So, yeah, Flourish Ventures in India, the backbone is that if there's anyone who's building exciting stuff for small businesses, for uh, the larger mass retail market, and there's an innovative idea that will help solve their lives, we'd be more than willing to evaluate and back those opportunities. But typically early stage investors, which means that we can come in anywhere between seed to Series A and also do Series B investments.
That's super cool that like Flourish Ventures is an evergreen fund and you also help to back these amazing entrepreneurs through the through the brand that you've created. And now, if you're comfortable, would love to know like what are some of the biggest wins or anti-portfolio for Flourish Ventures, and like what made some of those companies stand out or not?
Right. It's it's obviously, I think, given the team has been investing since 2015, 2016, as I mentioned, we've been able to build a portfolio that we are proud of, right? So we have about 71 investments globally. But for our conversation today, we'll focus on Flourish India. So we have about 20 plus companies in Asia that we have invested in. And I think one thing from a Flourish perspective is that we've really had the opportunity to invest across the financial services spectrum, right? So, right from digital credit businesses, which are serving the MSMEs, to digital credit businesses, which are powering for individuals, insurtech companies, wealth tech companies. Then we have a few on the embedded finance side, and then of course on the B2B infrastructure companies. I think to name a few that we are really proud of, and I mean, to be honest, we're proud of all of them, and you know, everyone's charging ahead in their own right and in their own way. But just to talk about a few today, you know, if we talk about Indefeed, right? Indefeed was very early on founded with this mission of creating access to capital for the underserved MSMEs, right? And as we know, MSMEs is a huge part of the Indian economy. They continue to be underserved, and there is a huge appetite and there's a huge scope of providing credit to them, which can unlock a lot of business opportunities for these businesses. And that's what Indefy does. They go and they partner with anchors like, you know, big platforms like Google Pays of the world or Swiggy and Zomatos of the world. And through these anchor partners, they go and get access to MSMEs and then they provide credit to them. So Indefy is one such example, right? On the digital credit side. Then we have Scriptbox, which is working on the wealth side, helping people plan their financial health and manage money better. We have M2P, which again is a very differentiated play, which is a B2B infrastructure play, which helps not only fintechs but also, you know, banks and NBFCs with new age, new tech kind of softwares and infrastructure pieces, right? Which helps them move from legacy systems to new age, more cloud-based technology, right? So they're really powering the back end for a lot of the financial services businesses. So yeah, I mean, and then there are 20 plus companies and we can keep chatting, but just to give a flavor, we have Indefy on the MSME credit side, we have Scriptbox on the wealth side, we have M2P on the B2B infrastructure side, and then there are a lot more on the embedded finance side and across climate finance as well, which we can keep talking about as we go through the podcast.
Of course, of course. So super congrats on all the wins that you had with Flourish Ventures and all the wins that you've had in your portfolio company. So let's now get into the founder's side. So could you describe one of the most unexpected founder moments you've had, and where you went in kind of without any specific expectations and they just kind of blew you away? Like if there's any instance of that, like would love to like know like what are the qualities as well that you look for in the founders that you back?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would put it, right? Like the fun part of the job is having this ability to meet founders every day, right? I think that's the best part of the job. You not only get surprised every day in the way that you mentioned, but also you get to learn so much from them, right? I think it's incredible that you get to hear so much about their journey, their experiences, and get exposed to new ideas, right? I think unexpected and more so something which was different from our day to day, right? So I can recall two experiences. One is with Aqua Connect, and the second one is with Step Change, right? So let me go one by one. So the first one is Aqua Connect, right? Aqua Connect is really a B2B platform, which is working on the aquaculture side, right? They help, they work in the aquaculture value chain, and they provide, they facilitate the commerce between the players who are producing these feeds, seeds, healthcare products, and aqua partner stores. And on the output side, they facilitate commerce of the actual produce, which is shrimps and fishes, to the processors which do exist, right? And the reason why I say it was intriguing as a meeting was because, as you'd imagine, that our work revolves around financial services, and it's not very often that you get into aquaculture as a value chain, right? So it was a very interesting meeting, and it was very fascinating for me to learn that how shrimp farming particularly is such a scientific activity, right? That requires constant monitoring of water quality, animal growth, health management, feed consumption. Is there an appropriate use of inputs which is happening, and the sophistication which just goes in and around aquaculture farming, right? So that was very surprising to just learn about what goes behind shrimp farming, and then the order of magnitude of the industry that is, and the players that are, and the role that India plays from the aquaculture value chain. So I learned a lot, and we of course ended up backing AquaConnect. This was under our embedded finance thesis, right? Where we power platforms who do commerce and then embed financial services within them. So that was one very positive learning experience out of the box for us. The second one is of course Step Change. Step Change is a new age company which is working with banks and financial services on the financed emissions and the climate risk side. And financed emissions essentially is scope three for a bank, right? The scope one, scope two, scope three, and banks are required to measure their financed emission, which is the scope three, and actively monitor the impact of climate risk on their day-to-day operations. And obviously, StepChange is founded by incredible founders, Ankit and Sid, who have been very actively working in this space. And that was again a pleasant and I was intrigued by that meeting was to learn how much RBI was working in terms of incorporating guidelines and rules with respect to financed emission and climate risk. RBI was way ahead of the curve. They had come out with guidelines. They were putting, sort of pressure on banks and financial institutions to incorporate some of these practices. So it was just very fascinating for me to learn again the action that was happening from a financed emission and climate risk perspective in the financial services domain. And again, really liked what they were doing, and we ended up backing them. So those are two instances that I can recall where I was positively surprised. There were a lot of learnings. We were very intrigued by the insights that the founder had, and we were able to take those bets.
Yeah, it's great to see how you build like so much conviction for these two kind of ideas and how much learnings you had out of like just sitting in on those meetings and getting a chance to meet those incredible founders. So let's discuss now about the Flourish way forward. So what's the vision for the year, and like what's the India story that you want to write this year?
No, I think, see, from our perspective, we are very active from in India, and we want to continue to deploy more capital in India. I think India presents a huge opportunity from a financial services space, and though we have done so much every day, you're amazed with how much more you can do within this sector, right? Um, and really from our perspective, we are more top-down investors where we have an ingoing thesis, we have an ingoing perspective, we work on certain areas, and then we sort of align within the teams and globally on a particular thematic, and then we go ahead and make those investments. Ingoing sitting today, there are a few themes that we are very excited about. To start off with, we think from a payments perspective, there's a lot which still needs to be done, both in terms of domestic payments as well as cross-border payments. We're very actively evaluating companies in both these spaces, trying to figure out what the opportunities are. On the cross-border payment side, there's still a lot of opportunities in terms of disruption to be happened, and more specifically with respect to using stablecoins as a settlement mechanism, right? So actively looking at cross-border payments, domestic payments. On the domestic payments, we see a lot of activity which is happening with respect to B2B payments. So we're exploring that very, very actively. The second set of opportunities that we see is on the wealth side, right? Wealth tech as a sector has been growing very, very rapidly. There are good signs where there's financialization of savings of the Indian households, which is having, right? Increasingly, people are moving away from physical assets to financial assets. And within financial assets, also, they're looking for products which can give them better returns and can give them beat the inflation, right? So move away from FDs and look for alternate products, right? Which could be either in the form of fixed income products or mutual fund or any such avenue, right? So very excited about Welltech. We look to see opportunities in the fixed income space, people or companies which are enabling better penetration of mutual funds in India, helping or assisting in that distribution, with the overall view, right, that as a financial household, when you look at the savings of a financial household, it has to be split across multiple assets, which is adjusted for risk and return, right? You don't need to have you don't need to have your savings which is concentrated just in one thing. It needs to be a combination of various things, right? And then you see what those combinations are and how can you push the envelope to achieve that, right? So a combination of having mutual funds, a combination of having fixed deposits, a combination of having bonds, maybe investment in gold, and then other type of products. And within Beltec as well, what we're excited about is folks which would help or build the infrastructure, right? In a way that the industry moves from legacy systems, gets modernized, and starts adopting new age products. So we spoke about payments, we spoke about wealth tech. Another interesting area for us is climate and finance. We are actively looking at opportunities at various intersections, right? Which combine with unorthodox industries, or rather orthodox industries as well. But so climate and finance is one. Climate and housing is another that we continue to explore. So we'll actively be looking at investments at the intersection of housing finance and climate finance. And then embedded finance continues to be another area of focus for us. We've made a few investments in the embedded finance space, but now we're also looking at vertical SaaS platforms, right? Probably companies from India building for the US, wherein you know these SaaS products take care of a core need of a particular industry and a particular user. And by virtue of that, they become natural owners of the customers. And then they have the ability of cross-selling financial services or powering financial services for this customer, right? Um, and by virtue of owning your customer, your CACs come down. With SaaS, you have good ACVs and healthy margins, and there are like good businesses to be built. And we made a couple of investments on this thematic already. Spry is one investment where the company started in India by Indian founders and is selling to the US. So yeah, I mean, these are a couple of thematics that come top of mind, areas and avenues that we are excited about.
Yeah, super excited for Flourish Ventures 2025 and beyond. And so, Now I'd just like to get into some things where you can just share now, like how, if I was a founder and I wanted to raise funds, how can I reach out to you, or how can I learn more about Flourish Ventures and what the amazing work that you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing I can say is always up for a coffee with any founder who's building in the fintech space, right? I think as a team, we're pretty accessible, always willing to chat and learn and understand what the founder is building, why they are building, and irrespective of the stage, right? Whether the founder is just starting out, they have started out, or they've reached a certain maturity, right? And I mean, obviously, there are certain thresholds beyond which we cannot invest, but along that spectrum of seed to Series B, we look at companies across that spectrum. We love spending time with founders, not just with the intent of investing and doing a meeting with the purpose of this culminates into an investment, but more with the vision and purpose of sharing and exchanging notes about spaces, right? What our observation on the industry is, what are our learnings from the global markets, and to always hear the entrepreneur's perspective of how are things headed in India, right? There are always ground realities which you learn. So yeah, I mean, we're always accessible. There are various ways in which any founder can reach out to us, either via cold email reach outs, LinkedIn, any connects from the ecosystem, anything. So we're always up for a good conversation.